Should be ready now. Okay. Today's lesson will be, we're still in chapter 5, and we're going to be looking at exercise 520, which has to do with activity-based costing and determining how to allocate overhead using different activities. So hang on just a second, and I'm going to pull up the screen with you. And so you should be able to see exercise 520. We're going to be the Zaltzar company, and we're still using job order costing. And we're going to use activity-based costing to apply overhead to the jobs. There are going to be 3 overhead activities that we're going to be working on. The activities are setting up design, purchasing, and other overhead. This is how we're going to split or apply our overhead cost in this particular problem. Now, they've given us some information about these 5 jobs. They've told you that they had a previous balance in jobs 15, 16, and 17. And 18 did not have a previous balance, and 19 did not have a previous balance. So we started these jobs this period. We had direct materials that we added to all of the jobs. We had some direct labor that was incurred for all of the jobs. And each job has its own number of setups. And so what you would have to do is you'd have to determine an activity rate for setting up and design. And so that's going to be the first thing that they ask you to do in this problem. Once you have determined that activity rate, you would multiply the activity rate times the number of setups to get the applied amount of factory overhead. And you do something similar for purchasing with the number of parts and other overhead with direct labor hours. So in requirement number 1, they have told you that they want you to calculate the activity rates for each of the 3 overhead activities. So what I did is I just wrote down the 3 activities from above, put down what they told us that the activity cost and the activity driver. And then to determine the activity rate, we would take the activity cost, divide it by the total activity driver, and that will give you the activity rate per number of setups for the setting up department. So again, it's 156,000 divided by 1,200 is the total activity driver for this activity during this period of time, which will give you $130 per setup. We also had a purchasing activity that we had to determine the activity rate. Again, the activity cost was given to us. We divide it by the total activity for purchasing, which was the number of parts. And when you divide that into that, that will give you $12.50 as the activity rate per the number of parts. Other overhead, the activity cost was $420,000, that was given. The activity driver was $50,000, that also was given. You're going to divide $50,000 into the $420,000, and that will give you $8.40, which is the overhead that we're going to assign per direct labor hour, the other overhead. So in part 2, they want you to prepare the job order cost sheets for each job, showing all the costs through the end of the period, which is March 31st. And they also want you to show what is the cost of each job by the end of March. And if an amount is 0, you're going to put 0 in there. All right, so what I did is just set up a table of the 5 jobs that we had that we were working on during this period of time. You're going to start by entering the beginning balance, which was just copied from the information that was given. You're going to put down the materials balance, which was also copied from the information that was given, and the direct labor, which was also copied from the information that was given. What you had to determine in each one of the jobs is how they were applying overhead. Remember, we're doing it on 3 types of activities. The setting up design was one activity, purchasing was another activity, and other overhead was yet another activity. So you have to find the applied overhead. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the activity rate that we found in part 1 for setups. And then we're going to multiply this activity rate by the number of setups that we incurred in that job. And all of this information was given to you here. So the number of setups for job 15 was 20. So I took 130, which was our activity rate, times 20. And that's why the way that we would get the setting up design amount of overhead that would have been applied to that activity. For purchasing, for job number 15, we're going to do basically the same thing, except we're going to use the figures for purchasing. The activity rate was $12.50, and then you're going to multiply that by the number of parts that were used for job 15, which was 150 parts. And so you multiply those out, and that will give you the amount of the overhead that is applied for purchasing, for the purchasing activity. And then to get the other overhead that is applied per the other overhead activity, we're going to take the direct labor hour, the per direct labor hour of $8.40 that we found earlier. This was the activity rate. And then we're going to multiply that by the number of direct labor hours for this job. And that will give us the 5,460 as the total amount of the applied overhead to job 15. The total amount of the other overhead that was applied to job 15. And then what you do is you add all the costs together to get the total cost. So they wanted to know what was the cost of each job by the end of March. Each one of these jobs would have been done in a similar manner. So you're doing basically the same thing over and over again. Then they want you to calculate the balance in the work in process account. And so for the balance, you're going to start with your beginning balances. Notice that I have a column here that I added to each one of my job cost sheets that just shows the total for the period of time. So I've gone in and I've added the total of all my jobs, the beginning inventory, and that amounted to 98,480 that I posted to this ledger account. That was our beginning balance that was brought forward from last period. Then we're going to add to it the materials in total that were added. So again, I added up all my job materials and I got 115,810. Your direct materials are added to the work in process account. Your direct labor is also added to the work in process account. So the total labor for all the jobs during this period is 62,400, and I've added that to my work in process account. Then I've taken my applied overhead, and what you could have done here, class, instead of putting it down 3 separate times here, is you could have combined all of these together to get the total amount of the applied overhead and just put it once in the work in process account. But I chose to show it separately so you can see where all of your information is coming from. So materials, labor, and overhead are all debited to the work in process account. When you get through with jobs, you're going to transfer those out. And our problem told us by March 31st, jobs 15, 16, and 17 were completed and sold. So 15, 16, and 17 are completed. And so I put the total cost of each one of those jobs in as credits to the work in process account. So this was job 115 or 15, this was job 16, and this was the total cost of job 17. You could have combined all these together and just credited this one time, but I just thought it was simpler just to keep up with them separate. And then you know which job was transferred out, which will go to finished goods. So there should be a T account here for finished goods. And so we would debit each one of these to finished goods. And then when we sell the items, we only sold, it said in our, we sold all 3 of the completed items. So each one of these were sold. So these were transferred to finished goods. So we take them out of finished goods and put them into cost of goods sold, which is what they asked for next. So this 82,435 came from job 15 that was sold. Job 16 was 95,232, and job 17 was 92,930. All of these combined together are the total cost of the goods sold. That's all they wanted you to do on this problem. And this is the last problem that I'm going to go over with you for this chapter. So I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.